with the latest Genshin Impact patch, we have acquired 2 characters that have enabled a playstyle that we've not seen in, I would say, a very long time. That is the good old-fashioned plunging attack. Both Gaming and Xianyun allow for an insane level of support for plunging attacks. More specifically, Gaming is what I'm here to talk about. You don't technically need Xianyun for this team. She is just a very nice bonus to it, shall we say. But what I've come up with is probably suboptimal, as are most of my teams. But my word, is it satisfying to play. And it is essentially a Burgeon plunging attack team. Now that may sound a bit weird, but it works. And let me show you what I mean. Here we have everyone's favorite punching bag, Masanori. Let's give it a go. So it's pretty self-explanatory for a team. You literally just apply Hydro, apply Dendro, and then you can do Xianyun if you so desire. And then you just do stuff with Gaming. And then you just do this forever. And, you know, maybe don't let your Gaming die. Obviously, Gaming isn't meant to die, but, you know, that's what happens when you fail to dodge properly. But you get the gist. You put down constant Dendro applications triggered by Hydro, and then Gaming just jumps into the air, and then plunging attacks, and jumps into the air, and plunging attacks. So let's quickly run through the team and why they're even here. So first of all, we have Gaming. Gaming is the main DPS, and he is pretty much the one you're going to be doing all of your damage with, because he's going to be activating it with his massive, you know, plunging attack smackdown. Xianyun isn't actually necessary for the team. I stuck her because the problem with Gaming is that he loses a fair bit of health with his plunging attacks, but he also kind of replenishes them. So Xianyun isn't actually a character you necessarily need in the team. But the reason I stuck her in is because she allows for more consistent healing for someone like Gaming with his plunging attacks. So obviously Xianyun's ult allows her to heal every time you use a plunging attack, essentially. And with Gaming, his kit basically goes, if you're above 50% HP, you deal more damage. If you're below 50% HP, you deal less damage, but you get increased healing. Combine that with Xianyun, you should, in theory, always be over the 50% threshold, so you're always doing, you know, as much damage as you can possibly do. On top of that, I've got someone who also is absorbing HP in the form of Furina. Furina is a great Hydro sub-DPS because you can just put her on the field, forget she's there, and she's fantastic. Main downside is she absorbs a ton of HP as time goes on, so having someone like Xianyun to heal is a very solid option. And then lastly, but not least, we need someone for Dendro, and I quite like Baizhu. Nahida obviously is also a very good option. Unfortunately, my Nahida in something like Spiral Abyss is always used for my other team, so she is always unavailable in Spiral Abyss, so I wanted to use someone who wasn't Nahida. And Baizhu is the only other Dendro character I have really built up, and he's not currently built for Elemental Mastery, so he's not quite as damaging as he could be, but I like Baizhu as he is. His Dendro application isn't as good as it could be compared to some other Dendro characters, but I like Baizhu. I like having. Now, this is quite an expensive team to own, I'm not going to lie. But in terms of replacements, Gaming, I mean, you can't really replace Gaming. The team's kind of built for him specifically. Xianyun, I guess you could probably switch out for another Dendro unit so that you have more Dendro application. So, for instance, you could have Baizhu, Yao, or Nahida, Dendro MC, that kind of thing. So, Xianyun, not necessary. I just like her. I like the additional healing. Furina, definitely not necessary. She is a little bit overkill because she obviously does her own massive amount of damage. And combine her with him, you also get Vaporize along with Burgeon sometimes. So you also get a big proc of damage from that. You can't really complain about doing, you know, more damage through different avenues. But yeah, Fiorina is a little bit overkill. I don't have a lot of options to replace Fiorina, but Kokomi, obviously, also a pretty solid option. You could also maybe get away with Mona, because Mona's E is fairly similar to Kokomi's, if I remember correctly. Yeah, okay. So it does deal hydro damage to nearby opponents. So if you don't have someone like Kokomi, you'll probably have someone like Mona. So you can have consistent hydro application. In terms of 4 stars, you can do something weird with someone like Candice. So with Candice, you can infuse your character's weapons with hydro. So you'd have your Dendro application, and then you have gaming in between his cat, you know, coming back onto the field. You can smack them around, fly hydro, then Dendro, then the bloom happens, and then plunging. And then while you're waiting for the cat to come back, you're dealing more hydro damage. And yeah, it's a bit weird. It's a bit clunky. But if you honestly just don't have any decent hydro options to provide consistent hydro application, that works. Although, honestly, you'd probably be getting a lot more out of someone like Zhangqiu or Yalan. Admittedly, you're not going to be getting much out of them because you're not really doing basic attacks, so they are kind of wasted. But if you need, you know, some kind of hydro application, they are there. But yeah, if you want to do a weird hydro infusion, Candice is an option. But I really like Fiorina because she's a set and forget, and she lasts like 15 seconds, which is so very good. And then last but not least, we have our Dendro application. Now, obviously, Nahida, very, very good option. Yao Yao, also very solid option. My Yao Yao is very poorly built. She is not very good, but I can see how she would be useful. She can proc a ton of blooms, which is lovely. She is a solid Dendro character to have on your team if you don't have someone like Nahida. Then, of course, there is always Dendro MC. I stand by the fact that Dendro MC is actually weirdly good. They're not great, they're not particularly amazing, but as a Dendro applicator, they're not half bad. So someone like Yao Yao or Dendro MC, definitely fairly solid options. But for now, this is who I'm sticking to. So, as you can see, my characters aren't anywhere near being built to a level that I'm quite happy with. Like, Fiorina's not really complete, Baiju's not complete, Xianyun I've barely touched, and gaming has pretty much just been given whatever 20 artifacts I've got. We'll go through their details a bit later, but the team cleared me through floor 11 of the Abyss with little to no effort required. And at the time, gaming, level 70, Xianyun was level 40, I've only gotten her to level 60 today. Fiorina and Baiju are exactly the same as they are now. And I just want to preface, Constellation 0, Constellation 3, talents 111. These have not been upgraded. These have not been upgraded. She doesn't even have this yet. I don't know how much better this improves things, but she's not done. Neither is gaming. He's at 111. And floor 11 was almost no effort whatsoever. So I am very excited to see what the team can do at, you know, its sort of end point. I didn't want to wait because I always find myself doing this. I'll be like, okay, I'll wait until the team's at a better state and then I'll do a video on how it performs and whatnot. And then I just never get around to it. We'll just spend some time on the Abyss, see how things go. And no one's been upgraded, nothing's been touched since the last part of the recording. It's all the same, and I'll go through like the details of the characters later. So, as you can see, it doesn't require a lot of skill. It is pretty much just smacking buttons. Activate Hydro, activate Dendro, and that's about the gist. And a great thing about gaming that I'm not sure I noticed until recently is obviously the way his dog works is that you need to get it has to run back to him before his cooldown is reset, but you can actually just run back to the dog to cut down the running time, which is a really interesting thing about gaming that I find very enjoyable. Obviously, a big portion of the damage can also come from Vaporize. So it's not, you know, purely Burgeon. But I mean, with the damage being high, with just one of the sources going, having both of them working is just splendid. So obviously that's only floor 11, it's not the hardest part of Spiral Abyss, but considering the two characters that have no damage potential, in theory, with only talents of 1/1/1 each, it's not too bad. Obviously I imagine Fiorina carries a fair amount, as she normally does, she does a ton of damage, but I still think the team is an absolute ton of fun. So let's quickly go through how I've got them equipped and then we'll leave it there. So for gaming, for his weapon, I've gone for the Mailed Flower just because of the Elemental Mastery buff to increase Burgeon. Whether you should go for attack percent or Elemental Mastery, I think is down to personal preference. Another option is just to have something that does increase attack. So Serpent Spine is also probably a really good option to have, because I was using the Royal Greatsword, but personally I kind of like the additional Elemental Mastery that comes with the Mailed Flower, and I didn't have anyone that could make use of the Mailed Flower that I was particularly using at the time other than Carve, so I'm quite happy with him on the Mailed Flower. In terms of relics, we want to go for the 4-piece Crimson Witch of Flames just to increase that Burgeon damage. As you can see, his stats they're okay, they're not amazing. This, I do think I want to change to an Elemental Mastery, possibly, but I don't have one, so I'm sticking with attack percent, and that's just how it's going to be. Pyro, of course. His constellations are C3, and his talents are all 1/1/1. So the man is not built particularly well at the moment, and I love how he plays. He's a ton of fun. I'm happy with his damage, and that's without any real investment. Xianyun is, of course, in an even less specifically good place. So let's start off with the weapon. This, honestly, is just primarily for the energy recharge. I want her to have her ult pretty much as possible. So Oathsworn Eye, really nice option to have. Ballad of the Boundless Blue, you could also use for energy recharge, but the skill doesn't really have much use for her. Elemental Mastery, always an option if you want to try and put in more Anemo EM, but that's not particularly what I'm using her for the minute. Most people should have the Oathsworn Eye, I would imagine. If I'm not mistaken, that was the Inazuma free weapon we got. But yeah, Oathsworn Eye is currently what I'm stuck with. Artifacts, these are not good. I don't like farming Viridescent Venera, and I keep meaning to do some more of these, but I never get around to it. But yeah, she's not in a great position. Like, I mean, this is still 0. This is, you know, it's fine, it's whatever. And then this is just because I didn't have any other Viridescent Venera hats. She doesn't need the crit rate. I would probably rather have something like, she definitely doesn't need this piece at the very least. It is very, very bad. She is C0 and her talents are 1111. So again, Xianyun not built properly. So her impact on the team isn't as good as it could possibly be, but ultimately she is just kind of there for some consistent healing and to help gaming out a bit more. Next we have Fiorina. Fiorina is not, again, another character that's not particularly well built. The only reason she has this is because I don't have her 5-star and I haven't done the Fontaine fishing weapon yet. So I pretty much went with the only thing that scaled with HP, and that was the Dock Hands assistant that I've currently got. So obviously her best slot for the most part is considered Fontaine fishing weapon. So if you've got that, I would recommend that. If not, the Dock Hands assistant is your best bet. Obviously, since she scales with HP, unfortunately don't have a lot of HP scaling options. In terms of her relic set, of course we have the Golden Troop set. The Golden Troop set is phenomenal. I'm fairly pleased with some of her items. Some of them could be a lot better. So scaling with HP, and crit damage for extra damage. She does need a fair bit more crit rate, but at the minute, you know, she'll do. She does pretty solid damage and I'm pretty happy with it. Constellation is 0. And then her stats are 166. So she's averagely built. Last but not least, we have Baiju. For Baiju, we have the prototype Amber. Honestly, he'd be better off scaled with something like Elemental Mastery. But again, I personally think that Nahida is probably better for this team, but it is just for the fact that I have Nahida used for a different team that I can't use her for this one for Spiral Abyss. So, something like Elemental Mastery, solid option. Deepwood Memories, and then fully scaled for Elemental Mastery would probably be your best bet. Now, my Baiju is built purely for HP %, and he's going to be staying that way because I originally built him for a shield, even though that's less useful. And I do keep accidentally using him as an Elemental Mastery character, but it's too late. This is how he's built. This isn't how you should build Bailu if you want him as an Elemental Mastery character, but this is how mine is built. He got the job done. Constellations are 0 and his talents are 166. So again, fairly averagely built. But yeah, that's a brief lowdown of the team. They are not particularly well built, as you can see. That's kind of my channel's forte at this point, having poorly built characters that just barely get the job done. But I'm very impressed with how gaming and Xianyun performs, even with very little investment. Again, only floor 11 of Spiral Abyss, but I'm sure with a bit more work, they would clear floor 12 without much hassle, let alone the rest of the game. The rest of the game is easy enough as it is, but the team is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of different ways you can build it. You don't necessarily have to have Fiorina or Baiju, or even Xianyun. You can replace pretty much everyone in the team with the exception of gaming, because gaming is kind of the whole reason we're here. It's kind of like making a Heizo team and then replacing Heizo for some reason. But yeah, I absolutely adore this team. I'm having so much fun with it. Gaming is one of the most enjoyable 4-stars I've had in quite some time, which is saying something. And I know he's not to everyone's taste, but I really enjoy his gameplay and I find it very satisfying to play. So hopefully someone finds this team and enjoys it just as much as I did, because having a weird plunging attack Burgeon team was not what I was expecting when I started playing around with some team ideas, but my goodness, was it a lot of fun. And also, gaming has a really cute dog, and that's honestly all that really matters. But yeah, if you haven't pulled on the Lantern Right choice yet, gaming is always an option if you don't have him. If any of this looked fun to you, I would recommend it. Even without Xianyun, the team still works pretty well, I'd say. But that's my personal opinion. Anyway though, I'm going to say my goodbyes there. So thank you for those that stuck around to the end. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. What do you think of the team? Do you have any gaming teams that you have in mind that you've not quite had the chance to try yet? Or have you had a gaming team that you are absolutely in love with? I would love to know, so be sure to let me know down in the comments below. Until next time though, I've been James, the Mayor of JamessTown. Goodbye.